LaxFactor podcast. What is up, college lacrosse fans? You are watching the 86th episode of the LaxFactor Lacrosse podcast. Today, we are going to talk about Saturday's games. Tomorrow, come back and we're going to talk about Sunday's games. Today, we're going to talk about Yale, UMass. That was a great game. We're going to talk about Penn State, Penn, Johns Hopkins and Princeton, and Notre Dame and Maryland. Before I get into that, I wanted to say a quick word about our sponsor, Sideline Swap. Best place to buy and sell lacrosse gear, hard to find college gear, pre-owned heads, shafts, helmets, and more. Up to 70% off retail. List gear collecting dust in your garage, and Sideline Swap will send you a prepaid label when it sells. Go to sidelineswap.com or click the link in the description below. All right. Oh, and then always be sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, really smash that like button. That helps get the video out. And then you can share this with your friends to kind of spread the word. Let's get into this though. Number one, Yale against UMass. There were two glaring issues with Yale in this upset loss. First half turnovers killed them, and then just turnovers in general killed them. Yale coughed the ball up 11 times in the first half. That's terrible. And then the Yale goalies couldn't make saves to save their lives. Starr actually had a slightly better second half than the other kid did, but the Yale goalies are a problem at this point. And they've been a problem for Yale legitimately over the last 2 years even. It's not like Starr was lighting the world on fire as Yale won the national championship, and then he could have been better in the playoffs last year as well. TD dominated the faceoffs over the first half. However, UMass scored their 10th goal of the first half to take a 10-2 lead. That ensuing faceoff, UMass won that faceoff and then had about a 1-minute possession before scoring again to end the first half at 11-2, which was really a kind of that hurts when you're sitting there trying to chip back and just go into the half 10-3 knowing you could make up 7 goals. To have that 11th goal scored after you lose a faceoff, which is something that you just normally don't do. That had to hurt a little bit, Yale's psyche. Yale came out, though, in the third quarter. They scored the first 4 goals of the third. They did that because of improved ride. They rode the crap out of UMass for a bit. They got some defensive stops. They hit a post. Jack Starr had 2 saves over that stretch. So Yale finally takes their heads out of their asses. They start chipping away at the UMass lead, and it's 12-7 by the end of the third quarter. So things are not looking too bad for Yale by the end of the third, considering what it was at halftime. Fourth quarter, TD wins the opening faceoff. Yale goal. UMass turned the ball over on a clear again. Yale goal, and now we're at 12-9. Giddy up, people. And then UMass ends up with a 3-minute and 14-second possession where they hit a post. They take a wide shot high before scoring their 13th goal of the game. That gives them a 13-9 lead, and that was pretty much it. A freshman goalkeeper for UMass, Matt Note, he comes up huge with 5 saves after Yale got to within 13-10. So Yale gets scored a 13-10, and this freshman goalie then makes 5 saves throughout the rest of the game. That was huge for UMass, and what a dumbass I am. I picked Yale by a margin. UMass had themselves a game. They took care of the ball. They put their shots on cage, and the Yale goalies were completely incapable of saving anything, and they played defense. Serious defense, in fact, causing 12 of Yale's 25 turnovers by simply just getting after the Bulldogs for a full 4 quarters. For UMass, Billy Philpott, 4-1, Jeff Traynor, 2-2, Kevin Tobin, 2 goals and 3 caused turnovers, Jack Dulock and Adam Towie, 2 caused turnovers, Matt Note, 12 saves versus 10 goals against. For Yale, Godat was 5 goals, Morrill and Brandow were 1-2, and Yale's goalies sucked. That was the difference in this game. UMass beats number 1. The next game I wanted to talk about, Penn State, number 2 against number 6, Penn. Now, Penn State needed a big day out of both Gerard Arceri, which they didn't get, and out of Kobe Knies, which they got, and it was huge. Knies, sure as shit, comes up with 18 saves on the day to help Penn State keep pace with a lightning hot Penn offense. And Penn's offense was hot without Sam Handley, their leading scorer from the previous year. I believe Sam Handley was their leading scorer. If he wasn't, man, he was right up there because he was one of the leading scoring midfielders in the country. Penn, they put 22 shots on cage over the course of the second half, and Knies was there to save 11 of them. And that really helped keep Penn State in the game when Penn was just on fire and just offensively just started clicking for the first time overall. So that ends up being enough to force OT. And then what happens there is Mac O'Keefe takes a feed from Jack Kelly on a kind of broken ball, fast break transition situation, and he stings the OT winner, and they escaped a scary one on the road out of the Penn Quakers. And actually, O'Keefe, he was being face guarded the entire game, and he did a great job of just letting the game come to him. He actually dodged a little bit more to try to create for himself. So I was pleased to see what O'Keefe would do when a team did a really good job of trying to bottle him up, and are doing a really good job of bottling Mac O'Keefe up. He still puts up 4 goals, a helper, and scores the game winner in overtime. Keys for Penn. This is the big key for Penn, and this is why Penn was in this game in the first place. I forgot about Kyle Gallagher. At one point, I was saying last week that I thought Arceri would come into this game and murk Penn on faceoffs. I completely forgot that Gallagher was still there. I thought Gallagher had graduated. Gallagher was the reason Penn was solid last year at the faceoff dot and why they were able to beat Yale. So Gallagher goes 26 of 39 from the faceoff dot for Penn. That's monster against a very, very good Gerard Arceri. So he proved to be the difference. That was enough to help disrupt Penn State's offensive flow. If it wasn't for him, Penn State puts up 20 in this game, as this was a shootout. You know what I mean? So the fact that he was able to keep the ball out of Penn State's hands, keep the ball out of Ament's hands, keep O'Keefe from getting fed, that helped their defense a great deal throughout this game and helped them limit O'Keefe and Ament, into what Ament was 2-2, O'Keefe was 4-1. So they're just lucky that those two didn't put up 8 points each. So that was huge. Good job by Kyle Gallagher there. Sean Lully, 2-7. Dylan Gergar, 5-1. They paced Penn, who without Sam Handley, I didn't figure they would have as nearly as big of an offensive outpouring as they did, but they did great. Birkinshaw, shaky in cage, but you're going to have that against a great shooting team and a team that can just score 9 deep. I mean, I forget who said it. It was in the U.S. Lacrosse article. I think it was the Penn coach had said that when you're dealing with a team like Penn State, they have 9 guys on their roster capable of putting up hat tricks, and that is the truth. So Birkinshaw, no reason to hang his head low outside of he came up 1 save short, and that being the game winner that he gave up to O'Keefe. Good shot, though. It was from O'Keefe's money spot. Left wing, fast break. There's nothing you can do. Hands free. Penn State, they got a great day out of O'Keefe, 4-1. Line mate Ament was quiet on the day, consistently being hounded by defenders on his hands. He was just 2-2. Trainer put up 4 goals. And then a couple of the other Penn State guys that you would expect to show, they did as well. But the player of the game for Penn State, in my opinion, definitely Kobe Knies. He stood on his head for the Nittany Lions, and he's the big reason that they were able to overcome that huge possession deficit and win this game because he had a great game in cage. Next game I want to talk about. Johns Hopkins against Princeton at Princeton. Princeton now ranked number 8 at 3-0, I think, before this game. Hopkins, they took a 1-goal lead. Evan Zinn scores unassisted. Zinn has looked really good at times this year. He forces some bad shots at times and throws the ball away here and there, but he reminds me of a Brendan Curry, tall, lanky, rangy midfielder that can shoot on the run. I like the kid. But then Mike Sowers took over. Sowers either assisted or scored 7 of Princeton's 9 first-half goals. He assisted the first 3 Princeton goals. Then he assisted the 5th, scored the 6th, assisted the 7th, and scored the 8th. The dude finished the first half with 2 goals and 7 helpers. Can anyone say this kid isn't the complete and utter front runner for the Twarton right now? Even Ament isn't close at this point if he keeps his pace up and Ament doesn't start doing the same. Game overall was never close. Epstein did play. He goes for 2-2. Cole Williams did nothing. He had an assist. Prouder and Naruski, they won 21 of 33 faceoffs for Hopkins. So that is a bright spot for Hopkins. Once they get Epstein back to healthy, if these guys can continue to win faceoffs, that may help them. But the Hopkins offense couldn't get the ball past Eric Peters. Eric Peters in cage for Princeton. I believe he's a freshman. He put up 15 saves on the day. And then the Princeton defense also forced Hopkins into 9 of their 11 turnovers. Not a lot of turnovers, but to have 9 of the 11 forced, that's pretty high. Sowers finishes the game 2-7, so he didn't score again in the second half, but he didn't really need to. Connor McCarthy, 5 goals. Alexander Verdaro, 4 goals. Chris Brown, 2-1. That's a quiet day for Brown. Epstein, 2-2. Owen Murphy, 3 goals. Evans in 2 goals. Hopkins' goalkeeping was rough. Darby got roughed up pretty good over the course of the first 40 minutes before having a seat. So Hopkins, they're going to continue to struggle. I still think they're doing better defensively than we expected them to. Offensively, they have just been terrible without a healthy Epstein. So hopefully getting Epstein back will help them rattle off some wins. But man, their schedule does not get any easier for the rest of the year. All right, last game we're going to talk about, Notre Dame and Maryland. And this game, Maryland did a lot of weird things where Justin Shockey was a healthy scratch last game. They bring him back. He takes every face-off in this game and delivers. They end up benching their starting goalkeeper, Brandow, in favor for Logan McNaney. He ends up having a great game. The game seesawed back and forth the entire time, like most of us expected it would. Maryland, they jump out to an early lead. Notre Dame battles back and took a 4-3 lead halfway through the second quarter before giving way to Maryland, and then it ends up being 7-5 Terps at the half. Now, Notre Dame comes back again, ties this game up at 7s off a Mikey Drake unassisted goal with 10:51 in the third, and then Maryland just started the slow burn from there. And this is what we see. Maryland, everyone wondered what was Maryland going to look like if they put a full 4 quarters together. This is what they look like. They come out and they dismantle a very good, high-quality Notre Dame team that can both score goals and defend well. So we got a complete game top to bottom out of Maryland for the first time all season. Maltz, so the game's tied at 7s, and this is where Maryland had typically been starting to falter because they couldn't put the full game together. And after it's tied at 7s with 10:51 left, Maltz, Wisnauskas, and Long, they score the next 3 goals of the game. The Maltz goal was off a ride. Bernhardt forced, I think it was I forget. Either way, Bernhardt, I know, picked up a loose ball off a ride. I forget who caused the turnover. It wasn't Bernhardt. It was somebody else. And then Maltz ends up scoring the goal. So either way, I'm flubbing this one here bad, but it was their ride. It was their relentlessness. And Maryland just never gave up and just kept coming at Notre Dame. Maryland on paper, they totally outplayed the Irish. They outshot Notre Dame 64-31, only 30-19 of actual shots on cage, but still 30-19 outshooting your opponent by 11 shots on cage. That's impressive. Notre Dame was 18 of 23 clearing the ball. Maryland was a perfect 21 of 21. Maryland dominated the faceoffs with Shockey winning 18 of 26 draws. He took every single draw, and that's impressive because Charles Leonard was coming off a great game his last game, and he is a solid faceoff guy. So for Shockey to get his job back and then come out and murk Leonard like he did, that's a huge deal. Logan Wisnauskas, 5 goals. Jared Bernhardt, 2-2. Daniel Maltz, 1-3. Maltz is emerging as a legitimate offensive threat. They kept Costabile quiet. He goes 2-1. Maryland defense kept the clamps down on everyone for the most part in this game. Liam Entenmann for Notre Dame, he goes for 16 saves, so he played really solid. And without his effort, this game doesn't even look as good as it did for Notre Dame. And then Logan McNaney for Maryland, first freshman to start in cage for Maryland since frickin' Nico Amato. That's going back some time. He goes for 10 saves against 9 goals against in his first career start, so that was great. In the end, though, Maryland, as I kept saying, don't worry about Maryland. They're going to be fine. They're going to get better. This is what happens when Maryland plays a full game. They can beat anybody. Notre Dame is a high-quality team. They're going to be fine. They'll rebound after this, but neither of these team schedules get any easier from here, so they're going to want to make sure they take care of their business as they play their next couple of games, non-conference games, before they get into conference play. And that's pretty much it, guys. Be sure to come back tomorrow. We're going to talk about Sunday's games. Cornell is playing, Virginia's playing, so Cornell, Ohio State, that's a big game. Virginia's playing, and then I think Duke plays as well on Sunday. So we'll talk about those in Tuesday's show. You're watching this on Monday. As always, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, really share this with as many people as you can. And as always, go to sidelineswap.com, our sponsor, or you can hit the link in the description below and go to Sidelineswap and get yourself some sweet used gear. You can also go to LaxFactor.com, buy yourself some swag, hats, t-shirts, polos, whatever. And that is it. Thank you for watching, and I will be back tomorrow to recap Sunday's games. Thank you and enjoy.